What happens after? That is the question no one is asking loudly enough. Everyone is talking about the solar flash. Everyone is sensing the shift. Everyone is feeling the changes in their sleep, in their emotions, in the restless certainty that something enormous is underway. But what comes after? What does the world look like on the other side of this shift? What does your life look like? What does humanity look like? What becomes possible that was not possible before? In part 1 of this series, we explored what the solar flash is. In part 2, we explored what it is already doing to awaken souls. In part 3, the Pleiadians revealed how to prepare. And now, in part 4, they want to speak about what comes next. Not as prediction, not as guaranteed prophecy, but as a vision. A description of what many believe becomes available to humanity on the other side of the greatest energetic shift this planet has experienced in thousands of years. This may be the most hopeful message the Pleiadians have offered in this entire series. Stay until the end, because what they say last is what they most want you to carry with you. Part ONE, why the after matters more than the flash itself. There is something important to understand before we go further. The solar flash, in the Pleiadian perspective, is not the destination. It is a threshold, a doorway, a moment of energetic reorganization that creates conditions which did not previously exist. Think of it this way. A seed does not become a tree in the moment it breaks open. The breaking open is necessary. It is the moment when everything that was contained within the seed is finally released into the environment that will allow it to grow. But the tree, the actual living, breathing, expansive reality of the tree, comes after. It comes in the weeks and months and years that follow the breaking open. The solar flash, in this understanding, is the breaking open. And what the Pleiadians want to speak about now is the tree. What grows from this moment? What becomes possible in its aftermath? What humanity is capable of becoming once the frequencies that have kept it locked in cycles of fear and separation and forgetting have been sufficiently destabilized by the light? Many people, when they think about large-scale transformation, focus on the disruption, on what falls away, on what is lost or dismantled or dissolved. And yes, the Pleiadians acknowledge there is disruption in this process. There's the genuine difficulty of old systems losing their hold, old certainties dissolving, old identities requiring revision. But disruption, they say, is never the final word. It is always the preparation for something new. And what is new, in this case, is something humanity has carried as a possibility within itself for longer than recorded history. What is new is the world that was always meant to be. Part TWO, the first change, how you experience yourself, the most fundamental shift that many describe in the aftermath of a significant frequency upgrade is not external. It is not visible in the news or measurable by ordinary instruments. It happens inside a person, in the quality of their inner experience, in the texture of what it feels like to be alive. The Pleiadians describe this as the experience of coming home to yourself. For most of human history, and for most human beings alive today, there is a persistent background experience of not quite rightness, a subtle but constant sense of being slightly out of alignment with something, of reaching for a fullness that keeps retreating, of being, somehow, more on the periphery of your own life than at its center. This experience is so universal that many people assume it is simply the nature of being human, the unavoidable condition of consciousness in a physical body, the baseline from which all human experience operates. But the Pleiadians say this is not the nature of being human. It is the signature of a consciousness operating below its natural frequency. A being of light living, temporarily and by choice, in conditions that have required it to compress, to limit, to forget significant portions of what it actually is. As the frequency rises, As the solar flash does what many believe it is designed to do, this compression begins to ease. The forgetting becomes less complete, and what emerges gradually, imperfectly, but unmistakably, is a quality of inner experience that many describe as the closest thing to genuine peace they have ever felt. Not the peace of nothing being wrong, not the peace of having all your questions answered or all your needs met, but the peace of being genuinely at home in your own consciousness, of experiencing yourself not as a small, isolated, temporary thing in a vast, indifferent universe, but as something that belongs here, something that is connected, at a level beneath ordinary perception, to everything that exists. This shift in the quality of self-experience, the Pleiadians say, changes everything else. Because how you experience yourself determines how you experience others. How you experience others determines how you treat them. And how you treat them determines the quality of the world you collectively create. The inner shift is where the outer transformation begins. Part 3. The second change. How you experience other people. One of the most striking descriptions that appears again and again in spiritual teachings about what becomes possible after a significant frequency upgrade is a change in the fundamental way human beings experience one another. Right now, for most people, the experience of other human beings is mediated by a set of filters that operate largely below conscious awareness. Filters built from past wounds and accumulated fears. From the need to protect against the possibility of being hurt, dismissed, rejected, or used. From the subtle but pervasive assumption that other people are, at their core, primarily competitors, primarily threats, primarily sources of potential harm that must be managed and navigated rather than genuinely met. These filters are not weaknesses. They are adaptations. Reasonable responses to the conditions that generations of human beings have been navigating since long before any of us arrived. And they have served purposes. Real, necessary, survival-relevant purposes. But they have also had a cost. A profound and largely unacknowledged cost. They have made genuine human connection, the kind that actually touches what is real in another person. The kind that creates genuine understanding rather than the performance of it, extraordinarily rare. Even between people who love each other. Even between people who have shared their lives for decades. The Pleiadians describe what becomes possible in a higher frequency environment as a thinning of these filters. Not their complete dissolution overnight, but a gradual, real, experience softening of the protective layers that keep people fundamentally separate even when they are physically together. What this means in practice is that encounters with other people begin to carry a different quality. A quality of actual contact, of genuine recognition, of seeing and being seen in a way that feels less filtered, less managed, less performed. Many people who describe experiences of heightened spiritual awareness report exactly this. That the ordinary social interactions they have always navigated with a degree of management and calculation begin to feel different, more alive, more real, more genuinely connecting. And this shift, multiplied across millions of people simultaneously, begins to change the texture of human society in ways that no policy or institution or technology alone has ever been able to achieve. Part 4. The third change. What becomes possible together. When the inner experience of individuals begins to shift, when the quality of self-experience deepens and the quality of connection with others becomes more genuine, something becomes possible at the collective level that was not previously possible. A different kind of problem solving. Right now, the vast majority of human collective problem solving, the way societies navigate challenges, allocate resources, make decisions that affect large numbers of people, is conducted from a relatively low frequency state, from the state of competition, of defensiveness, of the assumption of scarcity, of the belief that what benefits one group must come at the cost of another. This is not simply cynicism. It reflects the actual frequency conditions under which human collective intelligence has been operating. In those conditions, the most sophisticated collective intelligence available produces a certain quality of outcomes. Outcomes that are familiar to anyone paying attention to the world. The Pleiadians describe what becomes available when the collective frequency rises as a qualitatively different kind of intelligence. Not just smarter versions of the same thing, but a genuinely different mode of thinking together. One that is capable of holding complexity that the competitive, fear-based mode simply cannot process. One that can see solutions that are invisible from a lower frequency perspective. One that can create outcomes that serve everyone because it is no longer organized around the assumption that this is impossible. Many spiritual traditions describe this emerging collective capacity as one of the most extraordinary possibilities that the current shift makes available. Not a utopia, not a perfect world in which all problems are solved and all suffering is eliminated, but a world in which the fundamental orientation of human collective intelligence has shifted from competition to collaboration, from the assumption of scarcity to the experience of genuine sufficiency, from the management of threats to the creation of genuine solutions. The Pleiadians say this shift is not idealistic. It is the natural expression of what human consciousness is actually capable of when it is no longer compressed by the frequency conditions that have dominated this planet for so long. Part 5. The fourth change. Your personal life after the flash. All of this may sound vast and abstract, and in some ways it is. The changes the Pleiadians describe in the collective human experience are genuinely large-scale. They unfold over time. They are not the product of a single moment or a single decision. But the Pleiadians want to speak now about something more immediate, more personal, more directly relevant to the specific life that you are living. What does life feel like for an individual soul on the other side of this shift? The descriptions that emerge from many spiritual teachings on this subject share certain qualities that appear again and again, across different traditions and different frameworks. The first is a change in the experience of time. Many people describe a shift from the relentless forward pressure of linear time, always moving toward the next thing, always slightly behind, always insufficient in the present moment, toward a relationship with time that feels more spacious, more available, more genuinely present, as though the moment you are actually in has become more real, more full, more complete in itself than the endless succession of moments leading to some future state of arrival. The second is a change in what feels meaningful. The things that absorbed enormous amounts of attention and energy in the lower frequency, the status, the accumulation, the need for external validation, the compulsive comparison with others, begin to lose their grip. Not because you have given up or resigned yourself to limitation, but because something else has become more genuinely satisfying. Something that has always been available but was previously difficult to access through the noise of the lower frequency. The third is a change in creative capacity. Many people describe a significant expansion in what feels possible to them, not just in terms of external achievement, but in terms of inner expression. The things they had always wanted to create but had somehow never quite been able to reach. The version of themselves they had always sensed was possible but had never quite been able to inhabit fully. These begin to feel more accessible, more present, more genuinely within reach. And the fourth is perhaps the most profound, a change in the fundamental experience of being alive, a shift from the background feeling of being a small, isolated thing in a vast and different universe, a feeling so familiar that most people have stopped noticing it, towards something that can only be described as a sense of belonging, of rightness, of being exactly where you are supposed to be, doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing, in exactly the right moment for it. This is what the Pleiadians mean when they speak about what comes after. Not a perfect life, not a life without challenge or uncertainty or grief, but a life lived from a fundamentally different inner ground. A ground that is stable in a way that the reactive, fear-organized ground of the lower frequency simply cannot be. Part SIX, what the Pleiadians want you to hold on to. The Pleiadians close this part of the transmission with something that they ask you to carry forward. Not as information, not as belief, but as a felt sense of something real. They say, the world that is coming is not a fantasy. It is not a consolation price for the difficulty of living through this moment of transition. It is not a story that we are telling you to make the present more bearable. It is what we can see from where we stand. And from where we stand, we can see further than the current moment allows most of you to see. What we see is a species that has been carried for longer than it knows, a potential that it has not yet been able to fully express, a potential for a quality of consciousness, a quality of connection, a quality of creativity and care and genuine understanding that the conditions of this planet have not previously supported. Those conditions are changing. The frequency that has made that potential largely inaccessible is becoming unstable. The light that is arriving, gradually, persistently, with an intelligence that understands exactly what it is doing, is creating the conditions for what was previously impossible to become not just possible, but natural. We want you to understand something about hope. Not hope as wishful thinking, not hope as the refusal to see things clearly, but hope as the accurate perception of what is actually becoming available. Hope as the recognition that the direction of this shift is real, and that the world it is moving toward is genuinely worth moving toward. Hold this, not against the evidence of difficulty, not as a denial of the real challenges of this moment, but alongside them, as the larger context within which the present difficulties are taking place. The solar flash is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of the world that was always meant to be. And you, exactly as you are, in exactly this moment, are part of how that world arrives. Closing, 4 parts, 1 series, 1 transmission moving through time towards something that the Pleiadians say is already certain. You have followed this all the way here. And the Pleiadians want you to know that following this transmission, sitting with these ideas, allowing them to find their place in your inner landscape, this is not a passive act. It is a form of participation in the very shift being described. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of this vision of what comes after resonated most deeply with you. Was it the change in self-experience, in connection with others, in what becomes possible collectively, or something from your own personal sense of what life could feel like on the other side? Your words matter. They help others feel less alone in what they are sensing, and in a moment of collective transformation that matters more than it might seem. If this series has spoken to something real in you, share part 1 with someone who is just beginning to feel the shift. Let them follow the transmission from the beginning. The more souls who are genuinely receiving this, the stronger the collective field becomes. Take what resonates. Leave what does not, and trust yourself with everything you have to know the difference. With love from the Pleiadians and from all of us here at Lumore Awakening, the world that was always meant to be is arriving. And so, without question, are you. This content is offered for spiritual reflection, symbolic interpretation, and personal insight only. It is not presented as scientific fact, medical advice, or a prediction of real-world events. The narration in this video is generated using artificial intelligence voice technology. Please use your own discernment and personal judgment when engaging with this material.